Hi, C3 community and beyond. We are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you're here, give us a little note. Let us know where you're listening from. If you're watching the replay, put a little replay note for us. And just remember that throughout this event, we encourage you to participate, to send questions, to send your thoughts. Myself and Carl are here to interact with you and talk about workplace flexibility and how companies can better leverage that. I'm Karen Huller. I am the co-founder and co-manager of the C3 community on LinkedIn. That stands for Corporate Consciousness Co-op. What all the members have in common is that we're committed to co-creating a more conscious corporate landscape. And while we're glad that there's been progress on that front, we want to make sure that we continue that momentum. So we're all working together to make sure that these secret sauces of conscious leadership don't stay a secret, that we all understand how we can better and more consciously lead not just our teams now, but the future generations of the workforce into a more conscious corporate world. And Carl Shawn Watkins, who you've probably seen before here in C3 because he's been a repeat panelist and he was also a ConCon 2021 speaker, is here to talk about workplace flexibility. He coaches and trains CEOs and executives how to embrace vulnerability in leadership. You can see he's Mr. Vulnerability down there. And building relationships to increase profitability. Carl is a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, and he's certainly talked with C3 community about that before. His emphasis is, again, on vulnerability in leadership. He's a law student focusing on business and corporate law, and his career has included hugely successful leadership roles in both public and private sectors. He is transforming the diversity, equity, and inclusion landscape through embracing vulnerability. Welcome again, Carl.
Oh, thank you for having me. I know you write those things sometimes, right? And you give people those, but you don't ever really hear them yourself. So to hear that, it's like, wow, I'm pretty amazed at some of the stuff I've done, and not on a bragging tip, but it's like, wow, it's just amazing from the road I've traveled. So
it's also just amazing, that because we were just talking about the world, like how we're doing. I don't know. There's good stuff. There's bad stuff. We're just all trying to look for our opportunities to contribute and find out where the best places are. And it's deserved to look back at, what you've done and see how you've contributed. And that's something that I know a lot of professionals are feeling, and they wonder. 2020 was a lot of people wondered, like, what am I doing with my time? Why am I spending the time away from my kids or my family or my loved ones? Like, why is this mattering? How is this mattering? And in the world of workplace flexibility, it wasn't new. It wasn't a new concept before 2020, right? It existed. Lots of companies were making it work. And but we all realized that, wow, there's really something for our lives in this. And unfortunately, it looks like a lot of the companies that had made it work are going back to the office and back to the grind, even though science has proven that that's not the most productive, profitable method of management.
Yeah, and it hasn't been up to that point. I think one of the greatest things, and I talk about the pandemic, has been it gave us a pause, it gave us a reset, right? Not only did it do that in the essence of who we were as people, and even getting the opportunity to relearn ourselves, but it also gave us an opportunity to reprioritize some of the ways that we thought about doing the things we did prior. And I think through the hustle and bustle of just the continuing of going on, doing things, or just, as I say sometimes in coaching, just being, because a lot of times we were just being, we wasn't in the present, we wasn't in whatever particular thing that we needed to be, and our awareness was not there. But with the pandemic shutting down a lot of those exterior things that we have accompanied or we got accustomed to being parts of our lives, it really was distraction from our lives. And I think we've gotten wise to that point. And we start prioritizing some ways in which we can do things better to benefit us and also still do the things that we needed to do for us work, careers, schools, and those kind of things. And I think someone earlier this week, and he was telling me that they're being kind of forced back, a light way to put it, kind of being forced back out of that. And they was looking at their metrics and their KPIs and all this. He was like, I was performing so much better at home doing this like this, and now they bring me back in. And she had made a comment to me, said it's just them having to pay the rent. And I was like, wow, I had never thought about that, because a lot of these businesses that we work in these corporate parks we're in, yeah, they are leased and
Mhm.
there are payments to be made. And if you're not there, some of them have restaurants, some of them have cafeterias. There's a lot of things that's involved there, but
Yeah.
being flexible was really, really gained a lot of credibility with people over the past almost 3 years now.
That's a really so there are certainly suspected reasons why it
Mhm.
seems like we're reverting back to this grind, and I want to say grind too. Like, it's not even just that people are returning to the office. Certainly, I have some statistics here. Like 43% of people reported themselves. It's not to say that the metrics of their management agree, but that they were more productive when they were working remotely. And 30% said, yeah, that time that I wasn't commuting to work was time that I was able to apply to my job. In fact, one remote workers on average work 1.4 more days a month than employees that report to an office. But what is that's an interesting, theory that it's because the companies have this brick and mortar location, and that brick and mortar location employs people. And if these other companies want to keep their doors open, they need to continue working. And that's just it brings me it makes more visible to me the way we stay stuck in a mode, because there are industries that could die,
Yeah.
but they employ people. And instead of reskilling the workforce in those areas to work in the more environmentally friendly, tech forward industries, we're just saying we can't eliminate that because jobs. And yet there are 10 million jobs open right now and 6 million unemployed workers.
Mm.
We
When you do the math on that, oh man, you're falling into some of the conversations I've been having over the past couple. Actually, I just had this conversation about unemployment and work and jobs, and someone was telling me, well, you have to be careful with the numbers because certain metrics go in. If you're unemployed for a certain amount of time, they don't count you as that, or if you haven't applied. I know those statistics are there, right?
Yeah,
But the
there's a
real,
disengaged workforce, there's
yeah,
a
the workforce that,
discouraged workforce. Yeah, there's like
yeah.
gradations. Yeah.
Yes, those are those grades, but I'm still looking at the number, and why I chuckled is the number you put out. There are ones that I talk to that I either they hop on for me a strategy session, a discovery session, clarity session, just try to see what they can do, how they can learn, how they can be better. Uh, about 90% of them, and I'm not being high with this number, about 90% of them don't want to return back to the workforce in the capacity that they did before. And it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the job. They love what they do.
Mhm.
They love what they did. They was empowered by what they did as far as the job is concerned, but
Yeah.
they were not willing to go back and subject themselves to maybe the office cliques, or maybe the mistreatment from higher up, or
Ooh,
maybe
those
not being
toxic.
valued.
Yes.
Yeah, so when I'm talking to them and they're saying these things, I'm like, there's a lot of jobs up here. You got your, I'm looking at their resumes, I'm looking at their body of work, and I'm like, oh, you could be a nice plug in for here, plug in for there, and I'm getting a lot of people to say, I just want to take a stance. I just really want to do things different, and I want to be empowered. I want to be not taken for granted. I want people to understand the merit that I bring, and that this is with minorities, and not only that, because I deal with all kinds, and this is all kinds of, not just in the U.S. Even though we're talking about this as this issue, I've
Hmm.
had others from other countries that are saying the same thing that I'm talking to, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, the dynamic on how people are treated in the workforce has really given us space to where we are now.
Yeah.
And I say that great resignation is not because people are tired of working for corporate. The great resignation is they're tired of the attitude with corporate, and they're not being taken seriously in the things that they bring to the table.
Yeah. And this moment in time where there's 4 more million
Yeah,
jobs that will not get filled
yeah,
is a perfect moment for the workforce to speak up and say, as a collective, we're not going to take this anymore.
yeah,
Get your act together. Individuals are doing that for themselves. It's like their own life priority. They know a different way now. They know that this isn't how it's supposed to be. They know the peace that they have found from working at home and not having to interact with their toxic coworkers or managers. The need for their mental health. Like, let's talk about that, right?
yes,
I mean, certainly there are I know clients and professionals who love this return to work. They missed it. And for them, the decline, the isolation was very bad for their mental health.
yeah,
And so they feel this need to work where there's energy, and for them, energy and requires, people. But I think that if like same with all rights. My rights end where yours begin.
yeah.
We're not going to force people back just because these people need people for energy. There are other ways you can do that. You
Hmm.
can find those other people and go to a co-working space
Yeah,
and work among people. Like, and when it comes to real estate and that industry, there's that's a lot of land. It's a lot of real estate, and frankly, the possibilities of how that could be used to me presents other opportunities,
yes,
financial opportunities, green space opportunities, environmental opportunities, right? I mean, if we could find other ways to resolve the problems that people see around a mostly remote workforce,
hmm,
then we'd be free to really dig into other possibilities for the industries that are sticking in there just because they're employing people.
yeah. And it has to be an overall. It has to be an overall. I had a professor tell me a couple of semesters ago that everything is money central. And like you know that, right? It's Captain Obvious to an extent because of course, money moves everything. But it's also so disheartening to know that money also stops progress as well.
Yeah,
So if money's not if money's being made, is being made in a progress of where you're doing it, you can continually to do that. But if
right.
they're stopping money from coming in, no matter how smart it is, or no matter how reasonable it is, or how successful it could be, we stop that. And I liken that a lot of times into the politicians' phrase, stay out of the political realm. But there's so many parallels that draws a consistency to that. There are a lot of things that be actively working but doesn't really benefit those who maybe thought about it, design it, or do it. They're not getting anything from it. They'll shut it down, or they say it's no money.
Mhm,
And then stupidity, so to speak, if I can put it lightly, we'll have these projects and things going on, just spending billions, just wasting billions, but
mhm.
others are getting paid. Like those ones,
Yeah,
their companies are funding it, are getting money, or the ones that's putting in contracts for it are getting money. But it
mhm,
makes no sense for us to continue to do that. And this is how corporations have been running for the longest, I'm pretty sure.
mhm,
And I can just about say with a surety, some will change. Some has been forced to change with the pandemic, but
mhm,
for the overall, it's such a gratitude of they have and we don't, that really it's like us pushing a mountain physically with your
yeah,
hands, trying to push a mountain. Even if you get enough people behind you to do it, the mountain's only going to very smallly move. And this is how we found out that we've got the power in that. And I think a lot of people are leveraging. We're talking about leveraging the workplace flexibility. A
mhm,
lot of people are just saying, "I'm not doing that. I'm going someplace where my talents could be used maybe in a hybrid situation, Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
mhm,
Tuesday, Thursday, I'm at home, or vice versa, however the schedule works." And I'm noticing it also with talking to parents with their kids in schools, with the violence in schools. They're
mhm,
like, I'm
mhm.
bringing them home. So if I'm
Yeah,
working from home and they're from home, there's an understanding the sanctity of we're safe here, right? I know we're not really anywhere, but
Right.
the premise is that we're safe here and we're going to continue to do that. And that's what's allowing the companies to not really be flexible in that because they want to put you at ultimatum. Are you going to come work for us? But now people are like, okay, all right, I'll put in my resignation.
Mm-hmm.
I won't work in them. Or they quiet quit it. I heard that term over the past month or so.
Oh yeah, that's been a thing. I mean, but honestly, like I somebody created that term to create something controversial because
Mm.
that's burnout
Yeah,
reinvented. That's what that is.
really.
That's no, it wasn't news to us that people are burnout and like
Yeah,
hitting maximum capacity,
yeah.
and some of them aren't ambitious at the moment. That's
That's
really all it is like a lack of ambition. They're like, I'll do my job, I'll collect my paycheck because
and you go home.
I'm keeping my head above water and I have to survive.
Mm.
But at this moment, are they aspiring to take on more responsibility? Do they even have the capacity or the bandwidth or the mental fortitude or the physical fortitude? I mean, let's long COVID.
Yes.
How many people do you know that have long COVID? I talk to people all the time that have long COVID, and they're like, honestly, I just had a conversation with a client where I'm like, listen, if you wake up that day you schedule your meeting with me and you don't feel like it's a great cognitive day, we're not going to get very far. So go ahead and
Yeah.
reschedule it. And he's like, nobody understands that. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like people can't work at their same capacity if
Mm.
they're experiencing long COVID. And we're all like in denial about it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And the functionality of it is really we're at a place where people are identifying those things that they knew all the time, and I guess identifying would probably be the wrong word to use. They're actually being vocal about those things that they've already identified with or put up with for such a long period of time. It's no longer taboo to say, I'm not feeling good, I'm gonna take a sick day. It's no longer this kind of stigma or, I got a personal day, I'm gonna take it.
Mhm.
Evan, my dad used to have personal days. He used to just collect them like coins or something. It was like at the end of the year, he was proud. He had so many personal days he didn't take them, so many vacation days he didn't take.
My
And they
mom
used
won
to
the
be like,
perfect attendance award 8 years in a row.
yeah, and that was a functionality of the mindset of how they ingrained in you. Don't miss no days. Got to go to
Yeah.
work. Now, if I'm not feeling good, regardless of the circumstances, and I don't feel that I have to explain that. If I don't feel good or I don't feel like pressing through, and it doesn't have to be sick.
Yeah.
We don't have to quantify with I got a cold or it's COVID or I have a flu or I'm just not feeling good. I'm just not feeling work today, and
Mhm.
I'm not coming in. So those things are people are getting a little more emboldened to saying, because who's going to be there, right? If you don't work and you're burnt out and you can't come in, they're going to do interviews for your position. They're not gonna they're not gonna
Yeah.
carry the weight of you after you're done with them. They're
Yeah.
gonna do interviews. They're gonna get someone in. They're gonna pass your work around, distribute it, get it evenly around the office, or they're gonna eventually get a temp in to do that or something else. They're not gonna do anything that will cater to your mental health, to your well-being, past that. So why is there so much sacrifice on the opposite side and there's no leveraging? And now we're coming back to that where we're leveraging that. Let me see how you do it without us. And I
Yeah.
think that's really been the attitude.
And you brought up kids and the fact that, more parents are making the decision to pull their kids out of school and homeschool. I mean, especially because they were already expected to do it during the pandemic. And some of them were like, maybe this is better. Another like taste of something new they wouldn't have had the opportunity or chance to try out before. But now that there's increased risk of I mean, we've had threats at the school. My
Yeah,
school's been closed. I don't know how many districts that's true for, but it's scary because it could happen to your kid any day.
any day.
And so if that's an added stressor for you, and there's just like Jim Rohn said, there's risk in everything, there's pain in everything, there's challenge in everything. Everybody makes their individual decision. What challenges do I feel adept at tackling? And what
Yeah,
challenges can I, for my mental health, for my future, for the plans that I want to make, for my values, for my priorities, can I do without? And the workforce has lost 2 million moms and not a lot of them are coming back. There's a significant portion of them that aren't. And then I'm thinking to myself, and I didn't find data on this, I was looking for it, but I'm thinking that all these other countries that have been doing maternity and paternity leave better than the United States, that have been doing a lot of things in terms of like benefits, or even healthcare systems better, that I wonder if the U.S., with already experiencing a talent shortage, is going to lose talent to other countries where they can live and work anywhere. You know, um, I've known digital nomads before. A lot of tech professionals, they don't necessarily feel stuck in one place. They know they can work from many different locations, and they do that. And during the pandemic, there were certainly people who went to different states and worked from there and homeschooled their kids from there because they could do it anywhere. And that brought up some weird tax situations they might not have thought of. But now that they know how to navigate them, it's like, what's stopping them from being a US resident but working for a Belgian company? And then the US losing that talent altogether, you know?
And it's very feasible. It's very feasible for you to do that, and even embark in that, Rose. I've been given some opportunities to work with some people in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
and on projects, and doing seminars, and Zoom presentations, things of that nature. These are places of things that I would love to, without a shadow of a doubt, do for some Fortune 50, 100 companies here in the U.S. But those avenues haven't presented themselves because of things that they put in the way, or I gotta come to it, or I gotta, be there, or those kind of stipulations that they're putting involved, or I have to travel here. In just being out, I'm in a global, being speaking at a global networking event the next week, 11th on 11th, and this
Mm-hmm.
is going to be in Australia, but
Mm-hmm.
we're doing it over Zoom. So these are the kind of things that, uh, with us not with the workforce not having the flexibility, or not really capitulating, that's really the
Yeah.
word I want to use,
Mm.
to employees now, some of the power of which the workforce has held for so long. I think it's a time for the give and take. It's been take for so long. They put us
Mm-hmm.
in places where rules and regulations, policies and procedures have really put you in a box of where you are. But now with the booming out there, I was reading statistically where it's like since the pandemic, 850% of entrepreneurship has boomed in the past 3 years, right? So that's telling me that a lot of people had ideas of doing things for their own, but they were just stuck because they wanted a paycheck. But what it also gave me is that the empowerment of that 850%. So you know what? Get the paycheck. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
live life how I want to live it. And I think that that shouldn't be something that you have to negotiate. I think that
Yeah.
should be a part of what you sign up for.
Right. If you're here viewing, let us know where you're viewing from, and certainly feel free to jump in and interact with us. Let us know what your thoughts are around flexible workforce policies, which we've included, um, flexible scheduling. We've included remote working. I know that there's a huge campaign to eliminate one day of the work week, do a 4 day. There's tons of
Yes.
case studies now to prove that they didn't lose any profit, or actually they've gained productivity and profit, and so much more for their employees. They're getting higher engagement.
Yes.
They're having less turnover. There's not just work and then home. There's a ton of technology has made some things easier, but you also have to run the administration of your life too. You have to make your own doctor's appointments, right? You have to, take care of your car, and update your health insurance, and there are like administrative things you have to do for your life, and that extra day where you can recover on the weekend. Because if companies think that employees are recovering with their time off, that they're not in the office,
Woo.
they're like deluding themselves.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, I can speak from my own experience with two kids that the weekends are not restorative for
No.
me at all. But
Actually,
I'm
I think you put
self-employed.
in more. I think you put in more in that weekend time, and not only that, that I think just how the time is rolling in the cycle its own self. Like you look around, like I looked this morning, I had a couple things that need to be done. I had one appointment. Then I was going to do some work. I'm trying to plan for 2020. I look around, it's 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I've been up since 7. I've been, working at the computer since 7. I'm at home, so I start early to kind of get some things knocked out. And I just told you I've only done like 3 things, right? But it's already the afternoon.
Yep.
And I'm like, yo, I'm so far behind. I still got to do this and do that. So when you talk about that, that is the same way that it happens on Saturday. Let's say you want to sleep in or something. Sleep in to me is like 7 on a Saturday. By the time I sleep in and we decide whether we're going to, go out to breakfast or we're going to cook at home, by the time we look around, it's 12 in the afternoon. Then we go do something. God forbid, we got to go to the grocery store or kid got a sporting event. That's the afternoon. Then by the time you come home, it's okay. I don't even have time to cook dinner. Let's get Chick-fil-A or something, and then your Saturday's done. And where did you restore? Where did you relax?
Right.
None of
And
that.
then what about the places that are only open during work hours? And
This is true as well. Monday through Friday places, you lose
Where do
out.
you think they're taking care of those things at work? They have to. They're like all the hours where this other place is open coincide with the hours you work. You could do it on your work hour, but how many other people have spent over an hour on hold with a company that you absolutely have to interact with, especially now because they're down some people too.
So it's affected all of us. Yeah, I hate to call customer service for anything now. I really try to figure them out. I think during the course of this pandemic, I got accustomed to the first year or so. Things are backed up because of the pandemic, right? That was pretty much the storyline with every business or every service that you tried to get in touch with through customer service. And then it seems like they kind of like adopted that as a playbook because now they won't say the COVID piece of it, but they'll say, due to this or due to that, it's extenuating wait times. So I've really become a DIY because I don't want to be on hold forever. I tinkle with whatever it is till I figure it out.
Yep.
And it comes to that. So it's awesome.
And then you're still spending that time.
Yes.
If you're a full-time, employee, even if the alternative is you figured out yourself, you're still taking that time and that's still adding stress to, and it's taking away from the actual doing and the productivity. And I just want to go back to the kids for a second too, because all right, I'm Gen X, we were the latchkey generation. That was certainly true for me. We grew up at some point just getting used to the fact that parents were at work, we had to fend for ourselves type of thing. Did we turn out better for that? I don't know. But this is a different generation. This is a different generation. Obviously, they have the highest rates of mental illness, and the highest rates of suicide. I mean, like, let's let parents parent.
Yeah, I think it's a reversion that has to take place, and I get into these conversations. I have a son. I have a daughter. Who's 27, and the son is 22. So a lot of things that they do, we were just in conversation talking about calling instead of texting, or dealing with going into a branch like a bank or something that's actually dealing with. And I spoke to my son, and he's something that happened with his account, and I was like, some of those things like that you have to go in and actually talk to a person because on the phone you get rerouted to a lot of places. He's like, I ain't never been in a branch, and I. Not knowing it, like your kid, right? But you figure, got a bank account, you got a job, been working for the longest. I'm like, it just never dawned on me that he didn't. I said, well, how'd you open your bank account? He said, I did everything online. He said, I didn't go to the bank. He said, I did everything online. They sent me everything and they mailed everything. So that's how I got it. I was like, but it really didn't dawn on me that we have circumvented all of the touchy-feely kind of things of the way that we were raised up here, right? We knew mom and dad wasn't going to be on the phones or those kind of things, but we knew that this certain time they would be at work. So we had our key, we locked up, we didn't let nobody in, and then they came home, everybody had dinner.
Yeah.
And so there was some times and places in there that there was going to be a close family unit. We were going to be able to talk about things, how was the day, that kind of thing. Now the kids are living and raising and teaching and training themselves through machines and computers, and there's no of that. That's another piece of the leveraging the workforce now. People they don't want to do the touchy-feely things no more. Everything is like a form, automated. Don't call anybody and want assistance. By the time you push all the numbers and get to all it's just such a frustrating thing.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Again, if you're here, let us know you're here watching. Shoot us some comments. Shoot us some thoughts on what you're finding. We talked about a couple of reasons why there's such a resistance to just move forward with the flexibility that we've experienced through the pandemic, that we know on certain levels works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for everybody, but there are other things that can be done. So there's a resistance of people who do need people and have really suffered from the isolation, right? That's one level of resistance. Then let's talk about the lack of trust. Let's talk about that as a cultural component of companies, where they don't want their, even if data has proven, that their workforce is less stressed, less sick, there's less absenteeism, less costs around that, greater productivity, more actual, on average, more time put into the workday because they're not spending time commuting. There's still a lack of trust inherent in some companies that's causing them to feel like they need their employees there where they can keep tabs on them. There was another company too where I won't say who it is, but I know somebody who works there, and everybody's suspecting. Like there's something, like if there's a lack of transparency, then people are just guessing. Like they're making us come back because X, or them, and it might not even be true. But what they were suspecting was they just want to put on a front of normalcy.
Yeah.
Just for show. Just for show, we're going to make our employees come back.
Yeah, and they're not really being um they're not really being, how can I say this? Not really being thoughtful about what is taking place. And we're looking at leadership, and I always look at leadership as a forefront of this because they're the ones that's making the decisions, right? And I always tried to be that when I was in leadership. I'm sitting at the top, so to speak. So I got to know that whatever I decide is going to be a weight to the bottom because it's all rolling down there. So with everything that we think about, that should be the thought process in mind. Whatever decision I make up here in this room with you guys, someone down there is going to have to carry that out. So how can I make it easy for them? Because it needs to be done. But I don't think that bodes well in a lot of rooms where that happens. And I know in a lot that I've been in, the conversations don't get that way unless I push them. And I'm not saying that I'm just this great. I'm just saying, like, is someone hearing this in the room? So when we're leveraging these and we're making these things available to people, how about see what works?
Yeah.
That kind of benefits everybody. Because of course you're not going to satisfy everybody.
Right.
But everybody can benefit when you put things in place. There can be some beneficials to some of the things that we have to do. And being a part of that and leveraging that and getting the workplace to understand that. I've been advocating for the 4-day work week, man, for as long as I had a job. Because I just thought that it didn't take 5 days. And then I got into corporate and I started realizing, especially when you cut out a lot of these meetings, man, the meetings about the meetings, for the meetings, to tell you about the meeting. Like, yeah, I've been in so many meetings. So I'm like, what was that about? Why were we even
put an email?
Yeah, like that you couldn't have shot that out in a blast email to everyone. Like we just spent an hour in this meeting, and I'm not even really sure it's for it. And a lot of those meetings I like to take notes. I take notes. I don't even open up the notebook. So that tells me that there was nothing said in there that was really necessary for me to take away from that. But someone decided to have the meeting. A lot of those things, if we would kind of like cut down some of those things and start putting some progressive plans in place to say, okay, you know what, Carl, you can work, 4/10s or however you want to split that work. Some jobs could even go to 37.5. Get paid for 40. Don't do that. There's ways that you can skim that off where you can have some, I won't say balance, but where you could have some self-care in there along with the things that can make the company continue, the organization continue to grow.
I love that you brought up meetings, and because when you have a remote workforce and you have to coordinate them, I feel like there is a better tendency to be like, is this the venue that we need to use?
Yeah.
And then the waste of the meetings gets eliminated. And I do feel like the people who are returning are seeing, it's stressing them out, not just because, potentially, their health could be compromised, which I feel like eventually will become um, a, an accessibility issue. Like
Yeah.
eventually these people with immunocompromised compromised conditions, like they're going to say you're discriminating against me because you're not enabling me to do that on a wider scale. I know it's happening individually for sure.
Yeah.
But I do feel like that we're going to have to take, especially
Mhm.
long COVID sufferers, they're going to have to say, you know, nobody can really explain exactly what's going on with me, but they know that I'm experiencing these things that are limiting my capability. And if you don't allow the accommodations that are necessary for me to, keep my job, and if companies are just like, well, that's okay, we'll just replace you. Well, no, you can't just replace them because there are 4 more million jobs than there are people available for them, right? So, I
Mhm.
mean, there's going to be a reckoning one way or another. But the meetings, the waste that everybody has perceived about being in an office,
Mhm.
there's a fear and a burden that they're sensing of all of that coming back. We talked about toxic, the drama,
Yeah.
potentially, just stressing about interactions. People have greater amount of anxiety. Some people have anxiety just about being in a crowd again,
Yeah.
being around people at all. But yeah, we did lose some of our social interaction skills, and we're not all great at it coming back. And then we're bringing them all back in this like powder keg of a divisive, culture that we're in. And if you don't have leaders in your company that are adept at managing that conflict
Yeah.
healthfully, there's going to be fallout.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you can't just bring all these people back together, because part of the best thing about the pandemic was that the people that you vehemently disagreed with, you didn't have to see every day about certain things that are really important to you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're a leader and you're adept at managing that communication, then for me, you're like a conscious leader. And
Mhm.
and so you're not forcing people back for arbitrary reasons. Um, So I feel like the people who are requiring people to come back are
Mhm.
also the people who are not gonna be able to manage all
They're
of
not.
us being in the office the way things are right now.
They're not, and you're having a lot of the leaders that are just that in namesake, right? They're
Yep.
not having. We was having a discussion today on an early show that I was on, and it was just talking about the leadership in general, and what this means beyond the pay rate and the title on the door.
Mhm.
We having a lot of leaders now, and leaders are being so-called leaders are being formed now, because we were talking about the leadership retreats and those kind of things that they used to have set
Mhm.
aside for leaders to either go recharge, reset, those kind of things to kind of get new tools, being in packs with more leaders to try to get more understanding of how to manage and lead in crisis situations and things like that. And I think now to be a leader is even now much more above than what it was prior to the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
Because there was the obvious being able to hold your department standards, whatever those were, the values, the reports, those things that you was responsible for. But
Mhm.
now you're at a greater sense. You talk about you hit on the mental health piece, the people that are being coming back that may not be able to be around people now because of what has taken place. How people are really handling it stress wise based upon what has went on. Not only that, the recession and those things as well, the prices of things. There's a lot of mentally charged things that's going on outside of me reporting to a job now that makes the leader or the superior or the manager or the CEO, whoever it is, make their job that's much more higher. And we're taking
I mean, wonder why people aren't aspirational right now. Why they're not ambitious. Why
yeah,
they're not looking to
yeah,
grow.
yeah,
The
because
challenges of their job are like exponentially larger than they've ever been before.
it's that, and then we're not even taking into consideration the other end of the spectrum, those that are already in those jobs. They're dealing with those same problems.
Yeah.
They got the health, they got the mental health, they
Mhm.
got those things, and now they got to kind of like put their stuff in a box and then deal with so many others that they're leading with
Mhm.
so many things going on. And then you got the avant-garde of everybody now developing leadership courses, leadership programs, leadership. So who's truly understanding what leadership is? Because I'm
Right.
getting it down from the eye of so many eyes. I'm getting it from the vision, rather, from so many eyes. So
Yes.
now I don't really know what truly is conscious leadership because you're saying it this way, it's developed this way in your corporation, this is what you have. Well, I
Mhm,
just took a course for $299 for 6 weeks, and they
mhm,
told me this what conscious leadership is.
mhm, mhm.
So, we're being bombarded by all those different things. So now to be a leader, I mean, it's one of those things where uh, I do fine just working. Just tell me why I gotta go to work to clock in.
Right.
If you don't have the stamina or the aptitude to do that.
Well, that's one way at least we know we can contribute is that we can talk about all of these conscious leadership tenets and what it looks like and the practicality
Yes.
of it and the real life challenges of it and how to navigate some of these situations. Which, by the way, we're doing at ConCon 22 this year. It's November 16th. It's a 3-hour event. It's like a think tank. We're going to talk about all of these different challenges that conscious leaders have been facing and come up with some collective ideas on how to navigate them consciously and talk about some of the fallout that could happen if you navigate that consciously as well. What to do, for instance, if because you're stepping up for what's right, if that puts your job at risk, big
Mhm.
things that companies are that conscious leaders are facing right now. So um I'll drop a link to ConCon 2022 if you're available for those 3 hours in the afternoon, 1 to 4 Eastern on November 16th. Please join us for this year's ConCon. We're also going to be awarding a new Conscious Leadership Award. The nomination form is open. I should be putting those in too. But you were talking about the cost of everything and how that's adding stress to people.
Mhm.
The cost of gas. I went out to California. It was $7 a gallon.
Mm.
$7 a gallon. At least here I can get it under $4. But
Mhm.
like they were like, "We'll upgrade you to an SUV." I'm like, "I don't want an SUV. What do I need an SUV for? I'm not climbing the mountains around here. Like, give me the most gas
You
efficient
just
thing that you have."
seriously.
You know? I don't need an SUV. No, thank
Mm.
you. That's not an upgrade in California where gas is $7 a gallon.
You can keep that upgrade, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's horrendous, and that's saying it lightly. How things have gotten, and I'm at the point now. I don't really care to blame. I just want some solutions. I don't care who did it, who didn't
Right.
fix it, whose fault it was, who started, who's not doing anything above it. But now I want some solutions to the matter, and I'm still in, and this is, and I've been saying this a lot as well. I am all for helping other nations. Like I know that they help us. I understand that. I know it's not a him versus me mentality, but I look at so many things that we're suffering with. Where do
Mhm.
we find money to send to other countries, like
Yeah.
in the billions of dollars that we send, right? And this is not because I got quite a few people in my network that I deal with, that I talk to. We talk weekly about the issues in Ukraine and those kind of things, and I definitely sympathize with them.
Yeah.
And I know that that kind of thing is really what the U.S. is built on, right? The democracy. But then I look at it and I say, well, we've been fighting that lie for the longest because we right here in the U.S. and a lot of things aren't diplomatic, a lot of things are democracy,
True
right?
that.
So
Yeah.
when we look at the hypocrisy of that, and I'm like, okay, we have people here that needing it. We had these businesses that have put in these grants and these things for the COVID relief, right? They had a big investigation on that. One
Mhm,
company had 432 people as they named as employees, right? And they got
mhm,
over $10
mhm.
million of government money. Come to
Yeah.
find out, it was a sham. No one did the work on them. They all filled out, all 432 applications was at one location. How can 432 people live at one location? And I mean, just these kind of things that we let fall through the cracks, and
Yeah.
and then don't be accountable for them. And that's just okay. That's gone. Maybe we'll get that back. Maybe we don't. And there's
Yeah.
people that have some respectable businesses that's starving, can't
Yeah.
get loans. They put you through so much for small business loans to get your little 2 or 3 or 4 employee company to continue. There's so many levels to this thing.
These are complex problems for sure.
Yes,
Like
it,
it's not just like throw a solution at it and then,
yes.
we'll see how it shakes out and what it works and fix it like that. That's tremendous waste. Like, yeah. I mean, if only we could see the future, which we can't, you
If I
know.
see the future, I would play the Powerball. Yeah,
Wouldn't we all?
1.6 billion, right? And I don't even know if that works out. I think they said the payout for that is like 390 something million. I'm like, well, what are they gonna do with the other 700 something? They just take it for taxes, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So it is what it is. But we're in the essence of us leveraging that.
Mhm.
We're the ones that have the power, and we have to start using it and putting it in places strategically and intentionally. And we have to ride by those decisions. I think people now are even more emboldened to say
Mhm.
this is the choice I'm making, and if it doesn't fit you, fine.
Yeah.
They're not the fear of, I mean, we still have those things, car payments, mortgages, things of that nature, but we're going to have those anyway.
Yeah.
So let's figure out how we can pay those, have our mental health, our sanity, and be able to do things how we want to do them and live how we want to live. So I think that's really going to be the solution to it all.
Do you remember when there were no cars on the road? Remember
Yeah,
that?
it's been such a long time ago. I remember when it used to be maybe one car, because I know when I was growing up, we all shared a car. Like, I got my driver's license off my dad's old 60 something Mustang,
Mhm.
and like that was the family car. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't no four cars in the driveway. Now mine, I got a 2-car driveway and it's 4 cars here. So they have to park on separate sides of the house. My
Right.
children, so
We each have a
everybody has
car
a car.
now. But then when the pandemic came, it was like, wow, like I can get from A to B without
No
traffic.
traffic.
And I gotta tell you, I live on a really busy road.
Mhm.
It's a state road, and right now it's a detour for the
Yep.
last couple years. So like the air quality in my neighborhood, plus there's like mulching operations and other things going on. But I had some severe respiratory illnesses a couple years in a row, 2018 and 2019. And when there was no traffic, I could breathe in my yard. And it was amazing. And I was like, wow. Like I thought about um, the increase of childhood asthma cases.
Mm.
Like there's multi-level reasons why putting all these cars back on the road doesn't make
It's not a
sense.
good thing.
It doesn't
It,
make sense.
it doesn't, and and you can see that too. To the essence of that, even though it does get, and I know to some that's been used to the driving, right? There's ways that we can do that. I started creating a routine where normally I would do the routine of how I would drive to work or whatever, but I started getting up, maybe going to purchase my coffee at like the Wawa. That's for you East Coast people, the Wawa or something like that, and yeah, and go get the coffee and make it and indulge with a few people there, and then come on back home and
Yeah.
work from home. I started doing those kind of things at lunchtime instead of doing that. I would get up and put my sneakers on and walk around the cul-de-sac, to get there. I started ingratiating other things that I could do without the hustle and bustle piece of that. And
Mhm.
it boded well for me. That and then when you want to hop out of something, go to a store or something, you hop out. I remember I used to went to just jump to the store in between lunch. I was like, oh wow, there's nobody out here.
Yes.
I could run
As a
into the
self-employed
store.
person, I can decide to go to the store when nobody else is
When
usually.
nobody else is there, so I go in the store and then I can actually get around, and I don't have the older people. I'm just putting a knock on you guys. I have the older people hitting me with their carts.
Yeah.
They are out at those times. But all jokes aside, I think it just bodes for us better,
Mhm.
and it has been proven. Remember, there used to be the knock, right? You can remember, oh, we know work from home, you're gonna be lazy. Work from home, there's no concentration. Work from home, the work is gonna decrease. Work from well, that's all been kicked to the curb. Work from home has been much more economically great for corporations now than it's ever been. And even though we had all these companies that were forced to do that, they've even recognized that. But I say, and I believe, like I did when I was talking to the gentleman the lady I was talking to earlier today, she said somebody got to pay for those leases and those corporate structures and those buildings. So with you coming back and forth, how that equates to that, I don't know. But if I got people in the office buildings, then I can pay for the buildings. They can't. Did you freeze on me? Or did I freeze on you? Oh, she froze on us. Yes, but those are some of the ways that we're leveraging the workplace flexibility, and we're putting it back into the hands of the key word being leveraging, put it back in the hands of those that desire to want to work how they want to work. And the flexibility have to be ingrained by the corporations as well to say, okay, this may works better for us. Let's see how we can make this work better. Let's see how the way that they do things can enable us to be more fortified, to be able to do the same things or more, to have our numbers up, to be able to create those kind of avenues for those that are working, for those who don't want to work. You're going to have those that want to come back to work and those that are thrilled about it because they've been home. This has been kind of like rough for them. It's been a little exhausting, and it has been something that they were not prepared to do for such a length of time. Where COVID has done that to us, but it's also empowered a lot of people as well to say, I know what I do matters. I know the value that I have now, and I know what I bring to the company. So I want to get compensated for that. And I don't want it to be a negotiation piece. So when we're leveraging that, we have the ability now to say, yo, this is what I bring. So whether I bring it for your company or your organization, that's up to you. But I can now take the same value that I've been bringing to you for such a long period of time, and I can exhibit it now, maybe through the Zoom, maybe through facilitating, maybe through doing my business online, or maybe offering my services as a side business, in essence, to doing something else. So maybe I can just follow my dreams and start going after some of the things that I really wanted to do all the time, but I was bogged down into having a 9 to 5 and creating a lifestyle of which really wasn't conducive to the way I really wanted to live. These are a lot of ways that we have in the power to leverage the workplace now. And the flexibility is going to have to be on the corporation side. It's going to have to be in a place of where they say, you know what, you guys are right. This is how we have to do better. This is how we have to get it done. This is how we're going to get it done. And in understanding that, we understand that your leverage comes from being able to do that. And we built that leverage. Corporate has lost a little bit of that leverage, a little bit of that luster, a little bit of that power, so to speak, by having us work from home. And now they want to come back into the arena of saying, yes, I want you to be back here. But people are working much greater and they're doing greater things and they're doing greater stuff now, that they have the ability to work from home and they have the ability to do those things and to bring it together as family and working harder, working smarter, not harder. So these are the things that we're going to be compelled with to see in these next few months, years, however long it's going to be from the point in time that we're going to be doing it. But it's going to be a time where we're going to be looking for our leverage time to be of that. So, yes. So Karen says that the tech was certainly not something we brought up today, but I suppose this proves even that remote working isn't perfect, right? And she was kicked out. She was kicked out of the session, and her remote satellite or whatever you want to call it was not agreeing with her. But we thank y'all that were tuning in to the great discussion that we were having and getting the understanding of knowing that yes, you have the power to leverage. You have the power to leverage, and we can't do it. They can't do it without us. They can't do it without us. So, in understanding that you have power, use your power, leverage it. Leverage it to the place of where you get comfortable in how you work, you get comfortable in where you work, and you get comfortable in doing the work that you want to do. So, understanding that is premium. Getting to understand that is premium. Getting to know that is premium. And without that, we can't move forward. And this is all on the leadership as well. Leadership have to come to the understanding that say this is what's going to benefit us. These are some of the things and the ways and the avenues of which we're going to have to move that's going to be acceptable to those that work for us and those we intend to employ going forward, because it's going to come back to the place of we can't bring it back to where it was, that time is gone, and we have to move on to something that's much more greater, much more with the ability of being conservative to where we can do the things that we need to do, or just in essence of have these conversations to how we're going to work out now. How is this going to be done? How are we going to be the ones to do this? How are we going to lead this for those who's coming behind us? What are going to be the new policies and procedures going forward? How are we going to rearrange the work days so that we can have things that fit those that we continually want to retain? How are we going to work it out where it's flexible, where it's not just so much of the sick time and personal days, but how are we going to be able to give those days to people who are going to need a slower route to coming back in? These are some of the questions we're going to have to answer. These are some of the questions that we're going to have to you're going to have solutions for, and these are some of the discussions that we're going to have. And it's going to be more than just me plopping everybody back on the schedule for everybody to come back in. So, with understanding that and knowing that and seeing that, these are going to be some problems and some issues that are going to have to arise within the future of us moving forward. So we thank you guys so very much for this wonderful conversation. We thank you again to the Call to Conscious Leadership for the C3 community for being able to see this and take a part of this. Is also going to be disseminated, and also want you to prepare yourself for ConCon 2022. That's coming up in November, where we're going to be speaking on there. It's going to be so many great speakers and so many great events that Karen and Lawrence is going to be headlining and having. And yes, I spoke at it last year. It was a tremendous time. We talked a lot about DEI, also a lot that I tapped on, vulnerability in leadership and leadership in general, and how vulnerability in leadership is going to be the next generation of leaders. There's already been, I know a lot of people are familiar with that term, but a lot of people as leadership is going to be ingratiated with how that actually works. What does that actually look like? And how can I actually do it? These are going to be the next level of things that we're going to have done. So we thank you once again. Signing off as well for Karen Huller and myself, as her being the proud creator of the C3 leadership community. If you want to join the C3 leadership community, you can find us on LinkedIn. I do not have the link as of right now, but I'll make sure that it's in the show notes so you'll be able to join the community. We're looking for leaders to come and lend their voice to the conversations and to also put their hands to work into some of the solutions so we can move forward in leadership, in understanding leadership, and being an example of leadership. These are the things that we're looking to do. So you guys have a great rest of your day, and I appreciate being able to come in and have this wonderful conversation.